Hello and welcome to the live closing keynote of the Builders Online series. In this closing keynote, I want to look into how we innovate at scale, and we're also going to have a specific look at some of the announcements that we made at our annual reInvent conference last year and see how they can help you as builders to build faster and more effectively on our platform. My name is Klein and I'm the lead technologist for Asia Pacific for AWS. Now, but let's start off and have a look a little bit at why customers are innovating. Well, you got to evolve a lot faster than you used to be, right? First and foremost, we have billions of connected devices, no matter if it's mobile phones or IoT devices. We have a more pervasive use of cloud computing overall, and as we've seen in the last year with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of folks had to work from home. Overall, we have a more global and mobile workforce, and we're driving an increased amount of automation. But let's have first a look at some of our customers and how they make use of cloud computing to overall be more agile and innovate faster. Take, for example, Coca-Cola. They migrated 600 of their workloads in under 14 months from Unix to Linux conversion and moved it over to AWS. Not only did that allow them to save over 40% operational cost savings, but they cut their processing time from 36 hours to 10 seconds. That's game-changing. Or take News Corp, for example, that consolidated a lot of their data centers, moved it over to AWS, which allowed them to reallocate over $100 million back to the business away from their traditional IT spend. Or take a company like Nasdaq that builds their data lake where they stream in all the different market events. That's about 7 billion records every single day on top of the AWS platform where they run the analytics a lot faster on top of it. Or you as a developer or builder might have been using Slack. Well, those 30 million messages weekly that go over the Slack platform are obviously going over the AWS platform too, and they leverage us for the underlying services. And with the ongoing pandemic, a lot of folks have moved to, maybe watching more things on Netflix. Well, Netflix is all in with AWS, and which allows them to move faster, and have the heavy lifting done by AWS. Which brings me to the point of when I say, cloud computing and AWS can help our customers drive innovation. Well, why is that? Well, first thing, if you think about it, there are 175 over different services that AWS offers you, so you can rapidly experiment from core services like, compute and storage and database, all the way to higher level services like AI, machine learning, or blockchain, or augmented reality. And we want to democratize a lot of these capabilities, and I'm going to talk a little bit later in more depth how we do that in some of these areas. And of course, with cloud computing, you can scale it out to any kind of capacity and also at a global scale. With a click of a button, I'm global in any kind of country that AWS operates in, which allows you to really focus on what matters to your business. And here's a bit of an overview of all these different services. Now, the reason I'm showing it is because these are the building blocks, the foundational building blocks that you can use to move faster, to achieve on top of our platform, what you're trying to build a lot faster. No matter if it's core services, and we're going to talk a lot about the innovation that we do in the compute and storage and database space a little bit later, but also the higher level of services, how we democratize AI, for example, how we can build mobile applications really fast, how we can connect to satellites, for example. You basically have all these building blocks available for you to build faster. Which also brings me to the point of that we're witnessing a bit of a paradigm shift on how we actually think about IT, how we think about building stuff. Traditionally we had to rack and stack servers, have physical machines. Eventually we moved into more virtualization, then we looked into containerization, and lately we saw more and more a demand for what we call serverless. So, that might be something like AWS Lambda for code, or AWS Fargate to run your containers completely serverless. But the idea of serverless is you leave the heavy lifting to your cloud computing provider. It scales automatically to any kind of throughput out, but also back in, meaning you pay only for what you use, which is great. No wasted money, no wasted cycles on compute. But it also comes with inherent capabilities about relying on multiple availability zones, so you can actually build a reliable platform. Basically, removing the heavy lifting away from you. And this is not only about compute. Compute might be the obvious one with something like AWS Lambda, but also around storage or databases. There are ways of running these services completely serverless, meaning that we scale it out for you and you only pay for what you use, all the way to messaging, analytics, or AI. The key point here, although, is we provide you full flexibility on what spectrum you want to sit here, from running certain things on premises for various reasons, and we support you there with a variety of services, all the way to managing some of the things self-managed on cloud, all the way to fully managed services that we make available for you. You have the full spectrum, and it allows you to basically be comfortable about what do you want to own and what is maybe core to your business versus shifting that operational responsibility towards AWS and us as such. Now, I mentioned earlier about AWS reInvent, our annual conference. Now, this conference generally happens in person in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, last year, due to the ongoing pandemic, we had to bring it online. And the benefit of that is that we could have folks join from all over the world. There was over 500,000 registered participants on this conference. And we always leverage this conference to launch a lot of new services and feature functionalities on top of our platform. Last year alone, we launched over 150 new launches just on that reInvent conference. Now, in this closing keynote, I wouldn't have the time to run through all these launches in detail, so I kind of tried to bucket it into 6 major areas. The first one is about how do we provide you more flexibility and choices when you build on top of our platform. How do you reduce, or how do we reduce, I should say, the operational burden on you as builder and developers. We'll look into what we've done to simplify to run at scale, specifically on storage and database, take a lot of that heavy lifting away from you. And then, of course, looking into how we facilitate data analytics so you can drive insights faster and better, how we democratize AI and machine learning, and, of course, how you can improve your customer engagement. So let's go through these one by one. Let's start off by looking at the flexible choices that we provide you when you build on top of our platform. So let's start with one of the core services, compute. Now, you might have heard earlier about Amazon EC2. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically the virtual service that you can launch on top of our platform. Now, when you launch an Amazon EC2 instance, you have a choice of what we call instance types. We actually have over 350 different instance types from a variety of different chipsets providers, but also in their constellation. Like, for example, do you have a compute-intensive workload, then you have more compute-intensive instance types available for you, or more memory-intensive, or if you have high storage I/O. You have full flexibility and choices of what you want to choose, what fits your workload best. But apart from just optimizing for purpose, we also give you flexibility in the chipsets, the underlying hardware that you actually use. You want to use an Intel chipset, we prefer AMD. You might prefer specific chipsets that AWS builds themselves, which are on the ARM architecture, which we call Graviton or Graviton 2, which is the newest iteration here. I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of these AI and machine learning specific chipsets that are available for you, like Habana Gaudi, AWS Inferentia, AWS Trainium. And with reInvent, we also announced that we are now the first cloud provider that offers macOS capabilities. So if you develop for OS X or maybe for iOS and you need Xcode capabilities, you now have these capabilities also on top of our platform. Again, our idea here is to give you full flexibility and choice on what works best for you and best for your workload. So let's go a little bit in detail on some of the instance types that we announced and launched during reInvent. Take, for example, compute-intensive instance types. We launched the newest iteration of the Graviton 2 ARM processor, which we call the C6G, which provides you 40% better price performance over the previous generation. So better performance at a cheaper cost. That's great, right? So you basically have these iterations. In a similar gist, if you look at graphic-intensive workload, we now offer you with the G4AD access to the latest AMD Radeon Pro V520 GPU. Right? Again, the idea here, up to 45 better price performance. So again, run faster at a more cost-effective rate. If we talk about storage, we launched D3EN, which provides you the most locally attached storage in any cloud out there. That's up to 336 terabyte And the good news here is, in that new iteration, 100% higher throughput than the previous iteration. So again, access to more with higher throughput. If you need network attached storage, we're going to talk a little bit later about that when I talk about running at scale. With the R5B instances, you now have the highest IOPS capability and throughput for block storage that you attach. There's up to 260,000 input-output operations per second. And in the AI and machine learning space, we launched the Habani Gaudi chipset, which was a startup that focused specifically on building AI chips, was acquired by Intel, and we now make that available to you. Gives you about 40 better price performance to traditional NVIDIA GPUs. So again, if you want to train your machine learning models, this is probably the way to go. Or look at the AWS Trainium chipset that we announced, which provides you now the most teraflops in any cloud out there. So if you train machine learning model, really great here. And in the idea of providing flexibility and choices, if you train machine learning models, you probably use a framework, something like TensorFlow, for example. We don't lock you in. You can use TensorFlow, MXNet, PyTorch. We want to provide you with flexibility here. Now, talking about flexible choices, the other flexible choice that we want to give you is, where do you run your workloads? So obviously you start off probably in an AWS region, but sometimes you have certain workloads where you say, I need to be a little bit closer to the end user, or some of it maybe needs to run on my facilities. Well, we give you a flexibility on where you run your workloads. AWS regions with the multiple availability zones, obviously available across the world, but we also have smaller kind of regions, so to speak, what we call AWS local zones, so a select amount of services that are built closer to your end users. If you look into the 5G space, AWS Wavelength allows you to run a select amount of AWS services in the cell towers themselves. So that's really good if you build some of these 5G related AI kind of platforms, for example. That's great there. We announced also there new regions that we launched, for example, in Korea here in Asia Pacific. And then the other idea that we had was with AWS Outposts. Now, AWS Outposts, we launched it a few years ago, which is basically the idea of the same hardware that we rack and stack in our data centers. You can get them for your on-premise environment, but you have one single pane of glass to manage it. Now, the traditional form factor was a full rack. And a lot of our customers told us, hey, Outpost is great for some of these scenarios where I need to have it on-premise, but I want to use AWS hardware and a single pane of glass. But sometimes I just need one U or two U, just a small size here. And so we also announced the smaller form factors of AWS Outposts. In addition to that, containerization is a great thing, easy for us to build on containers. With Amazon EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes Service, and ECS, the Elastic Container Service, you could run and deploy your containers out within your AWS environment. And a lot of our customers have told us, hey, that's really great, but for some scenarios, again, certain use cases, some of it I might want to run on-premise, but wouldn't it be great if I could use the same tools, the same platform? And that's the reason why we made Amazon EKS and ECS available to run on-premise, which is called Amazon EKS Anywhere or Amazon ECS Anywhere. So you can now run containers and seamlessly build a hybrid scenario where some of your containers might run on-premise, deploy them out into a cloud environment, giving you that seamless hybrid capability. Again, providing you with flexibility and choices on what you run and where you run it. Talking about flexibility and choices, one of the other areas is databases. Now, we have a lot of purpose-built databases available for you, so you can choose the right kind of data store or database that's appropriate for your workload. But one of the other areas is when we talk about relational databases, a lot of our customers have told us, hey, we want to move away from commercial databases like Oracle or SQL Server towards more open source databases. And so we already had for a bunch of years our database migration service, but in addition, a lot of our customers told us, sometimes I have applications that run on SQL Server, but I actually want to move to open source like PostgreSQL, but that means I need to refactor my application. because otherwise they don't communicate. And so we thought long and hard about it, and we said, why don't we build a translation layer in between? And that's what Battlefish for PostgreSQL is all about. So you can accelerate your migrations from Microsoft SQL Server to PostgreSQL, because this allows you to have a translation layer for your application that still talks in the SQL Server language, so you don't need to rewrite your code, but on the underlying hood, you have a PostgreSQL database. And again, the idea here, hey, if we built that, why don't we open source it? And so it's 100% open source, so not only is this available in AWS, but if you want to do the same thing on premise, you now have a translation layer to run on an open source PostgreSQL database for your SQL Server applications, providing you flexibility and choice. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is, what are we doing and how are we innovating to reduce the operational burden for you as a builder and developer on top of our platform? And I already talked about earlier the idea or concept of serverless, right? Run fully managed. I gave an example of AWS Lambda, which allows you to run your code fully managed on the AWS platform. And previously, we've supported a variety of different languages with AWS Lambda, and our customers told us, hey, but I have containers. Can't you make that a bit easier for me? I don't care about the languages you support. Give me a container. And so we announced container image support for AWS Lambda. So now you can run your code in a container, push it to Lambda, and we run it for you. In addition to that, I told you earlier, serverless and Lambda means you only pay for what you use. Now, Lambda used to be 100 millisecond granularity. So we measure the execution time of your code, of your container in this scenario maybe, and in 100 millisecond increments we charge you for it. And we said, hey, that's still not good enough. So we drove that down to 1 millisecond billing granularity. So now you really just pay for the amount of milliseconds that you run your Lambda function. And we found that a lot of our customers that already extensively use AWS Lambda get about up to 70% cost savings on their existing functions. And what do they have to do? Nothing. Their bill just dropped down in the month of December. And that's really, again, our idea of, the larger we scale, the more economies of scale we have, the more cost savings we can give them back to our customers. We also upped the memory up to 10 gigabyte of memory. So if you had a scenario where you say, I wanted to use Lambda and serverless, but the memory wasn't enough, it's now up to 10 gigabyte. Now, the other thing is about DevOps, right? It's always great, the idea of running in this agile fashion where developers own and maintain the systems. But one of the challenges that we sometimes have is some folks are really good at maintaining and building and maintaining a platform, and others prefer to code. And how do we actually marry that together? And this is really where the idea of AWS Proton comes in. So an automated management capability for both containers and serverless deployments. But what does that mean? Right? It means actually you can have a platform team that can create templates saying, here's my environment and how it should run. And then developers can select a template and build on top of it. But the key point comes here in continuously maintaining it. So they can update, that templatized environment, and then it automatically updates your operational environment, effectively making it easy to maintain platforms and have developers, build on standardized environments. So AWS Proton, really interesting here. The other thing is about application availability. So a lot of our customers told us, hey, Amazon.com and AWS, you do a lot of things to keep your applications up and running. What do? We talk a lot about well-architected and other things, but one additional thing that we do is we use machine learning to detect anomalies in application behavior, and that helps us to improve the availability. And so we now make that same capability available for any of our customers with the help of Amazon DevOps Guru, which you can then use machine learning to understand your anomalies in your application, improve your availability. And talking about improving availability, in Amazon.com, for example, Amazon as a whole, we always run what we call game days, break things on purpose. Netflix does something similar for many years, and that's generally referred to as chaos engineering. So the idea of saying, I break my system on purpose. So I can understand when something fails, how my application reacts. And the idea, of course, is this, especially in a cloud environment, I can build an application that's highly available and self-healing. So I can break things and they should automatically, an end user shouldn't feel it. It should automatically recover. And that's the idea of chaos engineering. And so some of our customers told us, hey, can you make it a little bit easier for me, to do chaos engineering with AWS services? said that's a great idea. And that's why we announced the AWS Fault Injection Simulator. And as the name indicates, it's basically a service that injects faults into your AWS services, so breaks things on purpose so that you can see how your application reacts to it. So you can create experiments, you start your experiments, starts to fault the services, they get monitored to CloudWatch or Event Bridge, and based on that you can make a decision to stop the experiment or not, and then obviously understand where's the problem with your application and improve upon it. So a great way to do chaos engineering on top of our platform with this new service, improving your availability. Now, talking about availability, one of the other things is scale. Now, scaling, especially at large volumes in and out, isn't always easy. For example, with the entire COVID-19 pandemic, when people moved to work from home, we had a lot of our customers, especially like, for example, Zoom in the teleconferencing space or other scenarios, where they leveraged the AWS platform to dramatically scale out to the demand. Now, we talk scale, it's not just accessing more compute. That's easy. I can automatically launch a lot of new EC2 instances. But how about storage and databases? And so we constantly think about how we can improve in this space. And so let me start off first with storage, specifically what we call EBS, the elastic block storage. So this is attachable and detachable storage to your EC2 instances. Now, we had the previous generation, which was called GP2, and we now have a new generation or a new iteration on top of it, which we call GP3. What GP3 comes with is you have about 4 times the peak throughput than the previous iteration, giving you about 3,000 input-output operations per allocated gigabyte. And the best part here, it comes at a lower price point, about 20% lower price point per gigabyte than the previous generation. So if you use EBS, use GP2, time to probably switch to GP3 because it's faster and cheaper. So that's a great thing. The other thing, a lot of our customers have asked us, hey, I have storage attached network, I need really high I/O. How can you provide something like that for me on EBS? And that's why we launched the IO2 Block Express, which is the first SAN built for the cloud, for some of your most demanding I/O workloads. Think mission critical I/O, like an Oracle database and SAP HANA, your SAS analytics. Provides you now up to 256,000 input-output operations per second, up to 4,000 millibits per second throughput on this attachable, detachable EBS. And that's great. That's innovation in storage, allowing you to scale to a lot larger capabilities here. How about databases? So, with relational databases, it can be challenging at times to scale these things out. And so we thought long and hard about it many years ago. We launched what we call Amazon Aurora, which allows you to run relational databases, up to terabyte sizes. And then we started launching Amazon Aurora Serverless. As the name indicates, a relational database that can scale in and out completely serverlessly, and you pay only for what you use. There was one caveat to it. In the first iteration here, it sometimes took up to 50 seconds, for this to scale out. So we iterated on this, said that's just not good enough, and we announced Amazon Aurora Serverless version 2, which allows you to now to scale to hundreds of thousands of transactions in a fraction of a second. Now you can throw any kind of workload against, and that just automatically scales in and out to the capacity that you require in a fraction of a second, allowing you to run a lot of workloads that previously would have been inhibitive in this regard. And we actually found that some of our customers that are using Amazon Aurora Serverless save up to 90% compared to provision capacity, because it just automatically scales in and out. Comes with the usual function of multi-AZ support, global databases across the region, read replicas, backtrack, etc. So again, a lot of innovation happening here. If you have a relational database, look at Aurora Serverless. This is a great way to have it automatically scaled out for you, reducing that burden of running and scaling things away from you so you can focus on building what's core to your business. Which brings me, if we talk databases, to data analytics and insights. What are we doing in this space to facilitate that for you? Well, the first thing that I would start off with is, if we talk about data lakes, cloud computing, and AWS is the obvious place to build out your data lake capabilities. Why? It's scalable to any kind of throughput and size. You're only paying for what you use. But you can also bring in a variety of different data sources, your relational databases, your NoSQL databases, your Hadoop clusters, maybe your data warehousing, layer some machine learning on top of it, and and have a unified governance around it. Now, lots of best practices out there on how to build data lakes on top of AWS, so have a look at that. But what are some of the things that we iterated on, say, let's make it even easier for our customers? And the first challenge here was, well, if I have multiple databases, think, your relational database, your DynamoDB, maybe, some Amazon S3 log files that you have, if you want to bring that together, you had to load it up in your application and join that together. Now, there are ways to do it, and things like Amazon Athena helped you, but we said that's, again, just not good enough. Wouldn't it be great if I could have one SQL query and query all these databases together? That's what AWS Glue Elastic View does. So easily combine data across multiple data stores, but the other thing is performance here. So, okay, if I query all these data sources, I still want good performance. So what Glue Elastic Views also does is materializes these views, meaning it replicates the data into Glue Elastic Views, so you get fast performance on querying all these different data stores. In addition to that, when we talk about data analytics, we often think about, data ingest, data cleaning, normalizing, transforming data, and depending on which persona you are, there are different tools available. For example, if you performed some ETL jobs, you're an ETL developer, which means you load up data, you transform it, you put it into the final shape so you can get insights from it. AWS Glue Studio that we launched last year, a little bit before reInvent, allows you to visualize, have a visual way of authoring your ETL jobs. But what if you, a business analyst or a data scientist, and you say, I need to clean and normalize data? That's why we launched AWS Glue Data Brew, which allows you to clean and normalize the data, as you can see in the screenshots, visualize it, but it also comes with 250 over building transformations to automate some of your tasks. Again, facilitating this process of getting your data ready for analytics. And talking about personas, what if none of these personas? I say I don't want to write SQL queries. I'm not comfortable with that. What if I'm part of the business? I just want to run reports. Now, this is generally where business intelligence tools comes in. You might have heard of Tableau, for example. We also have a service called Amazon QuickSight, which allows you, to drag and drop things together and get a report from your data stores. But again, we said, hey, that's cool, that's good, but still not good enough. We have all these natural language processing capabilities in our AI services. Why don't we make that together with some of the analytics services? That's why we launched Amazon QuickSight Q, which allows you to use a natural way of asking a question. Give me the sales year-on-year growth of this region. Who are the top 2 sellers this year? So you use a natural way of phrasing your questions. Amazon QuickSight Q will understand which data sources to query, and then bring up the report for you, making it really easy to drive insights from a business perspective without the need to understand your data lake or SQL queries or the tables under the hood, facilitating this process. The other thing is about machine learning. If you want to bring machine learning in, very often if you talk about reports, you look at what happened in the past. But wouldn't it be nice if I can also make a prediction using my machine learning models into the future? Now, if I want to do that again, traditionally I had to load up my report, then query my machine learning tools, a lot of plumbing that was required there. And so we said, most people probably just want to use machine learning in a SQL query. Wouldn't that be better? That's why last year we announced Amazon Aurora, ML, which allows you to make machine learning predictions on top of your Aurora databases. Similar with Athena, if you used Athena, you had these machine learning capabilities in your SQL queries. And by the way, it's either way your own machine learning models or some of the fully managed AI services that AWS provides. But a lot of our customers said, thank you, that's great, but I actually make a lot of use of Amazon Redshift, which is our data warehouse service. He said, okay, cool, that makes sense. So we also announced Amazon Redshift ML, which allows you to run your machine learning models in your SQL queries against your Amazon Redshift data warehouse service. So get access to SageMaker and fully managed AI capabilities within your SQL queries on top of your data warehouse. And now, talking about machine learning, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing to democratize this space. Make AI and machine learning available for anyone out there to use, no matter if you have machine learning skills or you're completely new to this area. And so our vision here is kind of threefold, as you see on the slides here now. The top layer is kind of the fully managed AI services. What does that mean? These are, a variety of different services that look into the space of computer vision or speech or natural language or translation, or think about recommendation engines, personalization, forecasting, fraud detection. You get access to the same engines and algorithms that Amazon.com is using, through things like Amazon Personalize, Amazon Forecast, that you can just plug into your platform using SDKs or APIs. You don't need to train the models. You don't need to understand the science behind it. You just get access to the same capability as Amazon.com. That's really great. And so we thought about it. Now we keep expanding the space, and so we also expanded into, for example, the health space, health AI services. We already had things like transcribe and comprehend medical. We also added what we call Amazon Health Lake. So if you need to build a HIPAA-compliant data lake that stores health data or health life science related data, look at Amazon Health Lake. In the industrial AI space, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in detail over the next slides, we launched a lot of different appliances around computer vision and predictive maintenance and anomaly detection. So the key point here is the top layer is really, if you want to get access to these capabilities, you want us to fully manage and train and improve it, and you just call APIs to integrate it into your platform. The middle layer is Amazon SageMaker. So if you want to build your own machine learning models, with pre-built models, but on top of your data, that's the space where we sit in, and I'm going to explain a little bit more over the next slides. And lastly, the bottom layers is to say, again, providing you with flexibility and choice on how you build or run machine learning. So not only, and I talked about this in terms of the chipset and underlying infrastructure, lots of innovation happening there to reduce the cost for you to train and infer from your machine learning models, but we're completely agnostic to the frameworks that you use. So we don't lock you into any specific framework. You want to use TensorFlow, AmaxNet, PyTorch, any of the other available frameworks, or some interfaces like Gluon or Keras, or you're more into Java and you like the deep graph library, you have full flexibility and choice what to use, and we obviously optimize for all of these frameworks. But let's go to this one by one, and let's start off with some of the industrial AI services that we launched. Now we want to democratize computer vision. Now with Amazon Recognition, you get computer vision capabilities in the AWS cloud environment, and our customers said that's really great, but for some of my use cases, I need these computer vision capabilities in my shop, in my store, in my warehouse. Think about reimagining retail insights of how people move around in your convenience store, for example, or look at quality control of what you manufacture. Detect problems there. Last year with the ongoing pandemic, a lot of folks looked into how can they use computer vision to ensure workplace safety. Are you wearing a surgical mask? Are you wearing a hard hat where you need? Are you wearing a vest? Do you comply with social distancing? Or supply chain efficiency. A lot of elements where computer vision can help here. And so we announced what we call AWS Panorama, which is both an appliance and an SDK. And the appliance, which is what you see there on the left, is an appliance that you can connect to your existing cameras. So you have CCTV or IP cameras hanging around. You can connect it to the Panorama appliance and layer computer vision on top. Either way, bring your own models or choose from some of these examples that I've given. There plenty of computer vision apps available for you to choose from, bringing that intelligence to the edge location into your facilities. And what if I want to do quality control? Like the example that you see here on the screen, that's where Amazon Lookout for Vision comes in. So it allows you to spot defects or anomalies, perform quality control, and the idea here is that all you need to do is you need to upload images that show defects with as few as 30 images, and our AI model will learn from it and help you to spot these defects out. And talking about defects, how about predictive maintenance? We want to democratize the space too, and we said, what if you have like pumps or fans or compressors or motors, and you say, I want to make sure that, there's an issue, the rotation doesn't work, temperature goes up, there's more vibration. I should be able to detect that and repair it before my machine breaks down, right? Now, what do I need to do to be able to do that? I need to have sensors on top of that equipment, and then I need to have a machine learning AI model that detects these anomalies. So we thought about it, and we said, there are two scenarios here. The first one is you have equipment or machinery, but you don't have sensors on it. That's where Amazon Monitron comes in. So Amazon Monitron is an end-to-end system, so it comes with sensors, comes with a gateway device, and a mobile application. So the small little yellow things, those are the sensors. You can attach it to your machinery. The larger one is the gateway. And then the machine learning model behind the scenes helps you to understand their anomalies and alerts you through the mobile app. Of course, you can also use the mobile app to monitor your equipment, as the name indicates. And so some of our customers also said, well, hey, that's cool, but I already got sensors in place. I already use some of the common industrial data systems, or I maybe use AWS, IoT, and IoT Sidewise. That's what Amazon Lookout for Equipment is there for. So enable predictive maintenance without machine learning expertise required on your existing machinery, on your existing sensors. Of course, detect these abnormalities with existing systems. If you use something like OSI, SOFT, or some of these standards, there you can just integrate it as such. And talking about detecting anomalies, we thought about it, said, well, that's great for the industrial AI space, but sometimes I want to detect abnormalities in other areas, in my sales force, in my marketing activities, in maybe many other different areas. And so that's why we also announced Amazon Lookout for metrics that comes right now with 25 built-in connectors into like Salesforce, Marketo, Dynatrace, some of the AWS services, monitors that activity, finds anomalies, and then alerts you again to a connector. It could be your Slack channel or whatever you want, or maybe an AWS Lambda function to immediately take action upon that abnormality. Again, making this space or democratizing this space. I mentioned machine learning as a whole and how Amazon SageMaker can help you to build your own machine learning models. Amazon SageMaker now has a jumpstart functionality, so you get access to over 150 open source model of common themes, so you can search for your topics in your industries, get results of sample models that you can quickly kind of implement with a click of a button. But SageMaker as a platform as a whole, allows you to prepare, build, train, tune, deploy, and then manage your machine learning models. And we constantly improve this platform and look into what are some of the functionalities that we can help you with to just build your machine learning models faster. And without going into too much detail, because we don't have the time for it, I just want to highlight a few new things that we launched. The first one is, for example, SageMaker Clarify. So if you have the scenario where you say, I need to make sure that I don't discriminate against certain individual, I need to detect if there's a certain bias in my machine learning model, or I need to explain how my AI model works, very important, for example, in regulated spaces like the FSI industry. SageMaker Clarify now helps you to do that. And similar, we also launched things like SageMaker Edge Manager. So if you train your machine learning models in your cloud environment, sometimes you want to run them at the edge on your own facilities. SageMaker Edge Manager helps you to do that. And many new announcements. We have another online conference coming up where we go into a lot more detail. I'm going to tell you some details later about it. So if you're interested in this space, have a look for that. Lots of new announcements we had there. Now, the last area I want to talk about is improving customer engagements. So let's start off with some of the most common customer engagement, a call center. You might have heard of Amazon Connect. Now, Amazon Connect allows you to run your call center in a cloud environment. There are no fees around agent seat fees or whatever. You just pay for the minutes that you use with lots of integration points into the AWS services. But again, our customers told us great service already. But we have additional kind of requests. One is, help our agents to get better access and fast access to customer profiles and knowledge bases. That's why we launched Amazon Connect Wisdom, which allows you to get knowledge base issues faster in real time. The screen, connect customer profiles, building up that unified customer profile that you can pull. Amazon Connect tasks, allowing you to automate and track tasks that agents need to do. Or what if I want to make sure that I reduce fraud? I want to identify if the caller that I have is actually the person that I'm supposed to talk to. We launched Amazon Connect Voice ID, which allows you to authenticate your callers in real time using voice analysis with our machine learning models under the hood. And especially if you want to monitor how your call center is overall doing, if you need to tweak certain things, it's great to get analytics in real time. That's why we also launched Contact Lens for Amazon Connect with real time. So you get real-time contact center analytics powered with machine learning, voice understanding, transcription, etc. Talking about customer engagement, the other obvious thing is mobile and web application. If you want to build mobile or web application at scale and you want a quick way to do that, AWS Amplify can help you with it. Helps you build the front end and the back end. The front end can nicely integrate with some of the frameworks like React, React Native, Vue, etc. And you get a lot of these capabilities on, PubSub, predictions, interactions, etc. And it's all there, in the SDK, CLI for you to use. But we said, wouldn't it be better if you also have the flexibility to have a user interface? That's why we launched AWS Amplify Admin UI. So a nice little user interface that allows you to completely manage that backend that you're building for your application. Obviously, this relies on the underlying AWS services, things S3, DynamoDB, etc. But now it's all hidden away from you. You can focus on building your application. And talking about mobile application, one of the other areas that's very interesting is location. Right? If you have a mobile app, you have the ability to look at locations. You can geofence users, etc. I mean, again, a lot of our customers told us, hey, can you make that easier for me to access high quality data from data providers like Esri or Here, which are some of the common ones. But can you also help me to do better geofencing capabilities? Because I want to track my assets around, I have delivery vehicles around. That's where Amazon Location Service comes in. So if you need mapping or tracking or geofencing capabilities or routing capabilities, it's all there for you now with the Amazon Location Service. So let me close up here and have a little bit of a look at what we talked about. The idea here is really for you as a customer to focus on what is core to your business and leave the heavy lifting to us. Build more with fully managed services, or what we refer to as serverless very often. You shouldn't rack and stack your own servers, the physical infrastructure, scaling storage and database and compute. We constantly optimize in this space and we manage it for you so that you can focus on creating what is core to your business. So when you choose some of the services, always look at, is there a fully managed service available for me? I can probably build from there. Whoops. Clicked a little bit too fast there, and that really brings me to the point of if you think about the traditional way of running IT infrastructure, you think about these compute and storage building blocks, which are some of the core services, but look at AWS as these 175 over different services that really allow you to be agile, experiment around, automatically have it scale out to any kind of capacity, but only pay for what you use at a global scale, and of course, build a secure and reliable platform on top of AWS. Now, the earlier sessions probably taught you already a lot around how to build on top of AWS, but if you want to know more, have a look at our training website, aws.amazon.com/training, where we offer digital training online that you can consume at your own pace. A lot of different best practices, different kind of courses that are featured there. So I encourage you to go there and have a look. It allows you to learn even more on how to build effectively on top of our platform. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to democratize the AI and machine learning space. Showed you a little bit of what we do in the SageMaker space and other areas, but if you want to know more, I encourage you to sign up for our next online series, the AWS Innovate AI and Machine Learning Edition, which happens on the 24th of February. Keynotes from a lot of my colleagues and myself, over 50 different breakout sessions that dive really deep into how to build machine learning, how to use it for your business. So if you're interested in this area, have a look at it, sign up for it. We can go a lot deeper into how you can use our services. And now with that, I want to thank you very much for attending the AWS Builder Online Series. I hope this was insightful for you. Please don't forget to leave your feedback. Tell us what worked well, what didn't work so well, what you want to know more about. And as you start building on top of the AWS platform, if you hit a roadblock, never be shy, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help and assist you on building with some of the best practices, a well-architected, kind of a platform for you on top of AWS. Thank you again very much for attending, and see you next time.